but I'll play through some of these combinations that you could possibly use just in a straight 2-5-1 in the key of C. So D minor 7, G 7, C major 7. Another one. Another one. Sharp 4. Another one. Now these ones will be using the altered dominant on the 5 chord. So D minor 7, G 7 altered, C major 7. Nice chromatic movement there. Similarly. So how can we use these? Well, what I want to do is go through a standard like There Is No Greater Love, and I'll play this Quartal voicings. You'll notice in this standard as I play them through, some of the voicings I've inverted them, which I talk about in the book, but I won't go into detail with that here. So here's the changes for There Is No Greater Love. I'll play the bass line, or bass notes, along with just Quartal voicings. You should hear some of the sound associated with it. Some unusual clashes there, but that's just the result of some of the inversions that I used. I'll play through this standard now using our standard left-hand voicings, more tertian based left-hand voicings, and solo with it. And then I'll solo again with these Quartal voicings. And you'll hear the difference, even though I'm not trying to use pentatonics necessarily in the right hand. You'll hear how the sound becomes a little bit more ambiguous, opens up a bit more. I'm not sure exactly where we're going with it. So here's a standard. I won't play bass notes, but you should get an idea of the harmony if you know the standard anyway, just from the chords I'm using. Now I'm going to play the same thing with just Quartal voicings. Notice how it didn't really sound like There Is No Greater Love, and had a bit more sort of uncertainty about it, which is the beauty of the Quartal voicing sound. And you can do this in a blues, you can do this As we'll get onto with these videos, you can do this in any other tune you want. Adding some quartals into the mix will give you a nice sort of openness and break away from the traditional sound. Here's an example of a blues, just using a bit of both. A bit of quartals, a bit of pentatonics, a bit of your standard voicings. Blues and F. So you notice how the use of quartals can add a bit of colour and interest, and also that's a great way of getting outside the harmony. And you can do it to a greater or lesser degree with quartals, which I'll talk about in subsequent videos. One other thing before we leave the topic of left-hand voicings is that so far we've only talked about voicings in perfect fourths. If you want to expand the palette a bit more and not be so strictly based on the fourth structure, we can augment one of the intervals within a chord and create a little bit more consonant harmony, I should say. So, for example, if I take a G7 voicing, left-hand voicing, normally our rootless voicing is like this, in tertian harmony. Okay? From a 2-5-1. So the G7 or G13 chord, if I leave out the ninth, I now have that sound, which is sort of a quartal. Our perfect quartal would be from the F, but here it is with, and if you look at it, we've augmented it, the first interval F to B is augmented fourth, and we've got a perfect fourth on top. So we can create 2-5-1s like this. Gives us a little bit more strength on the 5 voicing especially. Alright, so the resolution is a bit greater. Same sort of thing if we use it as an altered chord. Quite nice. So it's easy to remember that you're just, your normal left-hand voicing, you're just dropping one note and creating an open quartal type sound, not perfect quartal but still classified as quartal. These chords are used often by Hammond players, organ players as well, because the thing with the Hammond organ is that they can clutter up the sound if you have too many rich cluster type voicings. By opening up your chord structures you can create a little bit more strength with the organ. So if I play now just a few bars of There Is No Greater Love with some of these augmented fourths on the dominant chords, you get a better idea of how they can work together. Right, so you've got a bit more sort of an idea of the harmony. The harmony isn't so obscure or based on perfect fourths. So there's no one approach which is better than the other. It's really a matter of personal taste. If you like the sound of the perfect or fourths or perfect quartals, then you might want to spend more time with them. But I think the thing is, what you need to do is just spend time learning the structure of quartals and learning how they work together, and then move on and adapt them with more traditional harmony, which is really what this is doing. In the next video, I'd like to look at two-handed quartal voicings, not necessarily full quartals across the keyboard, but quartals in conjunction with perhaps shell voicings, I'd like to call them, which are thirds and sevenths, and how you can really create some nice sounds. Also look at combining that with upper structure type voicings. And then we'll move into eventually pentatonics and give you some ideas. So hopefully this has been useful as a way of easily remembering, hopefully, left hand quartal shapes and get you interested in the actual process of using this in your playing.